folks. Hope you are okay. Long time no see. It's a long time since I'll put my cap on. I like my cap. It's a long time since we did a live broadcast, but it's good to be with you. Love to everybody out there. It's been a lovely day, and God is good. I'm hoping a Muslim apologist, a really nice Muslim guy called Nazam, is very nice. I've sent him a link. He said he'd come on last week, and so we're hoping that he will come on. I've also sent the link out to various people. If the Muslims want to come on as well, you're welcome to come on. But it's a respectful dialogue. There will be probably a little bit of polemics, but we're trying to have a friendly discussion, and that's what we're trying to do. Really, we're not trying to destroy each other or anything like that. So I'm hoping, because Nazam, I do respect Nazam. I'm not just saying that. He is a very gracious man, and very scholarly man as well. Very scholarly. So yeah. So we shall see. So we're going to look at the Gospel of Luke. So before Nazam comes on, he's not come on yet. He has the link. I'm just going to read. Hey, Truth Defender, you're welcome to come on, brother. We've got a Muslim apologist come on. He's called Nazam. He's debated a few. I think he's debated Jay Dyer, I think. Yeah, so I'm hoping that he comes, and we're just going to have a friendly dialogue. But the link's there if you wanted to come on. If not, you can just sit in. But there, so we're going to have. So anyhow, before we begin, I'll just wait for him to see if he comes. I'm going to read John MacArthur's little outline of the Gospel of Luke. So this is like a scholarly study of the Gospel of Luke. It's a scholarly look at the Gospel of Luke, and it's going to be a dialogue between me and this Muslim apologist. If he comes, he said he would. Let me just check. He might. Let's see if he's seen it. I hope he's seen it. So let me just ring him here. I'm just ringing him. See if he's coming. Hello. Hey, brother. Are you going to be coming on? All right. Don't worry. I'm just going to read a few notes out before you come. All right, mate. All right. God bless. Take care, mate. Okay. If you can share the discussion, this is not going to be like a massive debate. It's going to be a friendly discussion. So let's just go through John MacArthur. We'll wait for Nazar. John MacArthur. I'm going to be doing a lot of work with the Muslims in the next few weeks and months. A lot of work. So the exercise, what I'm hoping is me and Nazam can have a discussion, and we've discussed maybe taking it out to the universities. We're going to do these discussions around the universities. So that's what we're hoping to do. Or I hope he would help me to do that, where we have these dialogues. So anyhow, the Gospel of Luke. John MacArthur's Study Bible. Get yourself one. They're very, very good. As with other three Gospels, the title derived from the author's name. According to tradition, Luke was a Gentile. The Apostle Paul seems to confirm this, distinguishing Luke from those who were of the circumcision. Colossians chapter 4, verse 11 and 14. Very little is known about Luke. He almost never included personal details about himself. Both Eusebius and Jerome identify him as a native of Antioch, which may explain why so much of the book of Acts centers around Antioch. Acts chapter 11, 19, Acts chapter 13, 1-3, Acts chapter 14, 26. The Apostle Paul refers to Luke as a physician, Colossians 4:14, and Luke's interest in medical phenomenon is evident from the high profile he gave to Jesus' healing ministry in Luke 4:38. Author and date of the Gospel of Luke. We're just looking at a few things and then we'll go more detail when Nazam comes, yeah? The Gospel of Luke and the book of Acts clearly were written by the same individual. Luke chapter 1, verse 1 and 4, Acts chapter 1, verse 1. Although he never identified himself by name, it is clear from his use of we in many sections of Acts that he was a close companion of the Apostle Paul in Acts chapter 16, verse 10-17. Background and setting of the book. We're just going quickly. I've got a whole stack of notes here. Nazam's going to come on. He's a very scholarly Muslim guy, and we're going to go into a bit more detail in the Gospels. Background and setting. So I'm going to need you, Truth Defender. So, Gaz, are you okay, Gaz? Hello?
Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, Gaz, is it okay if when Nazam comes on, I'll just discuss with him for about 30 minutes and then I'll bring people on. Is that okay?
Yeah. Do you want me to hang around in the back studio or shall I just drop?
Yeah, I'll put you in background, and then about half an hour in, if people want to come on, Muslims and that, on Christians, people can ask questions. Is that all right? All right, I'll put you in the back, yeah?
Hi.
Hey, here he is. The University of Cambridge has come. How you doing, bro?
I'm good, thanks. Sorry, just
So,
for
Nazam,
yeah.
you're not going to get the usual Jason Burns here. I'm not going to be trying to slaughter you, and we go into this massive thing. This is genuinely an offer of friendship and dialogue. So it's up to you how you want that. But I'm willing to just be a friend and dialogue, brother. So before we start, is it okay if I ask a few questions about who you are and what have you done about? Because I know that you've done a few studies and things. Is that okay? Just so people can get to know each other a bit.
Sure, just give me a sec. I just want to fix my camera.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm still here, so I can still hear you. Just giving it a bit of a wipe.
Yeah, no worries.
Sorry for being late. I kind of thought it was cancelled because I didn't see any link to the the YouTube channel, so I wasn't sure if we were going to still speak.
It's my fault. I haven't been doing like podcasting live. I've just been uploading preaching videos. So I've not like planned it, like put it on the YouTube, like said a week in advance. People can look out. So I'm hoping like we do this video and then people later will be start. I think in a month, I think about 14,000 people a month go on the YouTube channel. So about maybe a couple of hundred will watch it in the next couple of days.
I was hoping that we could also do it do like a shared stream on Cov.
Yeah, you can share it if you want to share
channel.
it. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, so I was going to do that, but he's working today, so he's not available. But hopefully in the future we could maybe do something like that.
Yeah.
So
It's not going to be polemical. I'm not going to It's not Speaker's Corner.
No, it's
Cutting
fine.
thrust, you know.
I don't mind, to be honest. So yeah, like
So
we've known each
can you?
other long enough, so we know one
Yeah.
another's temperaments and so on. So
Well, I respect.
uh,
I'm not just saying it, bro, but I really respect you, Nazam. I'm
no,
not just
thank
saying that,
you.
mate. You
No,
know, I
no,
really
thank
respect
you.
you.
And I've seen you've said some nice words about me as well previously. So thank you. I
Yeah,
really appreciate that.
I think if you search the internet, I don't think you'll find anything I've said anything negative about. I have done for others, but never for you.
Yeah, yeah,
Because
sure,
you've
yeah.
always conducted yourself
Well, I haven't actually
in a
seen you say
Christian way.
anything negatively about others as well. So
So, so can I ask you just before we get into it, like a few things about your life and about how you got into apologetics for Islam and things like that. Is it okay? Just a few questions, just so we can get to know each other, people can get to know. Because
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
hoping that we
sure.
can do this. Maybe I could come on your channel sometime and we do it on your channel and
Sure.
just build it because I'm hoping to do outreach to Muslims more, and
Mhm.
I want them to see I want them to see that we can talk to each other and dialogue with each other. And, I'll
Mhm.
be at Speaker's Corner next week. It'll be more cut and thrust, but I want them to see that we can talk about these things and be friends as well as the end of the day.
Exactly. So I think the first time I came across you was in Manchester when you were street preaching, and this was like maybe 10 years
All
ago.
right. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I was visiting Manchester because there was like a Muslim conference.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
so I came by train, and so I was passing by the center, and I saw you with the speaker on the megaphone.
Right.
I think
Hey,
that was the first time I crossed paths with you, but we didn't interact or I didn't say anything. So I
I
was
was laughing
kind of busy, but yeah.
I was laughing
And
today.
you were busy as well.
Was you ever on that stream when Hamza was on and he asked me a question and I went like this
No, I
and
missed it.
I went I went like this and it looked like the computer freeze and I'm like this and then at
Oh,
the back
really?
the curtains moving, waving with the wind and
Oh,
it was so
really?
funny. You'll have to mention it to him. He still laughs
I
about it
see.
now. That's great. So can I ask like how did you get involved in like why how did your passion develop for study and studying uh, Islam and Christianity? Because you've obviously done quite a bit of study. How did that passion develop?
It's kind of a good question. It's not. I don't really have like a interesting or fascinating story, but I mean, I became interested in basically. I had a Christian friend, and he used to evangelize to me or minister to me, and vice versa. We got into like debates and discussions about Islam and Christianity. And so the first thing I did was to go on the internet and to research questions, and I came across the debates of Sheikh Ahmed Deedat. So the first debate I ever watched between a Muslim and a Christian was Ahmed Deedat versus Dr. Anas Sharash. And
Mm.
the subject they were debating was, is Jesus God? And so I hadn't really like I guess properly read the Bible before, but in the debate, many like Bible verses were brought up, and so I was like really impressed. Like I was surprised to know, at least in my understanding, that much of the Bible didn't seem to agree with what I've understood Christians to believe in. And so this sparked an interest in me, and so I began to study more, like watch more debates of Sheikh Ahmed Deedat. I used to watch his lectures, and then I used to go out of my way to try to find discussions or have dialogue with Christians. So I used to go attend like different churches or Bible study
Oh wow,
meetings, and
wow,
then
wow.
eventually someone told me about Speaker's Corner, and I ended up in Speaker's Corner.
And am I right, correct, or am I wrong? I'm sure I've seen it. Did you ever dialogue with Jay Dyer or not?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Yeah, you
That
did. And
that came about by someone messaging me on Skype or on Facebook Messenger rather. So he initially had already had a dialogue with Paul Williams. Um, so s- so similar to how Paul was approached, someone messaged me on Facebook and asked me if I would be interested. And so then I got invited to a Skype chat with him. And at the time, I didn't actually know we were live on YouTube. I just assumed that this was just kind of like a private meeting where he just
right.
wanted to get to know, where we get to know one another better before we have like a proper debate. But it turned out it was actually live on YouTube. So that was a bit of surprise, but at the same time, it is what it is. So I
Well, you
enjoyed
did.
the experience. So yeah.
You did all right, I remember. And then you debated
Oh.
another Eastern Orthodox guy who's
Hmm.
friends with Jay Dyer. I watched that debate. It was a very good debate.
Hmm.
You gave some good points, and then he came up with stuff, and my eyes were
Mm.
like popping. I was like, "Ah, I'd have to watch it about four times to get my head around it. It was a good
I
debate.
I
So,
see. Thank you.
so what about your reading? Like a couple of questions as like what Christian books or theologians or scholars have you read that really that you like you found helpful in your own life for your own polemics or studying defending Islam? Or is there anything that you've read
Um,
in Christianity that you've really enjoyed or it's impacted you to make you think, or any particular book or
I used to like the Lee Strobel books. Like I like the Case for the Creator.
yeah, yeah,
Lee Strobel, so he like interviews various Christian evangelical speakers and academics. And I thought many of the points that were made like resonates with Muslims, that Muslims wouldn't disagree with those points. I thought
yeah,
it was very well written and very articulate. Um, but I like reading the works of James D.G. Dunn, and also
yeah,
Raymond
yeah.
Brown, and also E.P. Sanders. So I feel like they have like a round house knowledge of the New Testament and the history and development of early Christianity.
Mm, mm, mm,
So yeah, so those are kind of like my favorite Christian writers on the Bible.
and what advice would you give a Christian if they wanted to study about Islam? What would you say? Like, is there any book or any like any advice you give? Go to the mosque or talk to an imam, or is there anything you would say to someone who might be interested in just studying about Islam?
So you might be a bit surprised at my answer. So I would actually recommend like asking ChatGPT basically, because I also like ask ChatGPT on Islamic questions, and even though you have to sometimes take what ChatGPT like with a disclaimer, but at the same time, I found that the answers that ChatGPT gives are actually accurate.
Yeah,
And I'm speaking as a Muslim. So even ChatGPT is a good place to kind of research about Islam. Um, Otherwise, I mean, people have different ways of studying and learning. So I
mm,
think many people are actually visionary learners, like myself. So I tend to, even though I do have like a lot of textbooks, and I own more books than I've actually read, I tend to learn more by listening and like watching YouTube videos or listening to podcasts. So I
yeah,
tend
yeah,
to do a lot of my studying when I'm on the commute or when I'm just out walking. And also just asking questions and just learning from people, and keeping an open mind. But otherwise, the people that I tend to listen to when it comes to studying Islam are people like Mufti Abu Leif, Dr. Shabir Ali, Dr. Khalid Abu Al-Fadl. There's some other people as well, which is not. You can Sheikh Atabek Shakruf. There is other people as well, but I can't remember all of them. So these are generally the people that I tend to go to about questions on Islam and Islamic sciences. And for non-Muslims, Gabriel Said Reynolds, I like his YouTube channel. So he's a Catholic scholar of Islam. So I tend to learn from him as well, especially when it comes to comparing the Bible and the Quran. Yeah.
Okay, that's great, brother. So what's your favorite food then, Nazam? Your favorite food?
I pretty much like anything. So I
Yeah.
like Mediterranean food. I like the Italian, like pizza, pasta. And I also like just South Asian food. So Mexican, Somalian, Kenyan food I like as
Yeah.
well. But I'm not so much big into Chinese for some reason.
Oh,
But I
wow.
like I like noodles. So yeah.
I love Chinese. Chinese food's my favorite, I think. That's
Yeah.
great. So I don't know how you wanna. Have you any ideas how you'd like to proceed with this, or do you want me just to lead the way, or what? It's up
Yeah,
to you.
go ahead. I was actually thinking of just listening to your summary of the Gospel of Luke. So
Yeah. So I'll tell you what I've got here. Um, that's a John MacArthur Study Bible I was going to read.
Mhm.
But I've got notes from various scholars here. I've got Adolf Harnack, Bart Ehrman, Craig Keener. So maybe I could just read a quote, some thoughts, and then just bounce off, see what you think. Is that okay?
yeah, sure.
And then we can go deeper into it. So Harnack on his book, Luke the Physician, it might be a book you might be interested to get hold of. I don't know what he's saying there. Don't know what he's saying there, brother. But
Um, what are his thoughts on the whole? Oh, okay. This was quite a long time ago. But yeah, obviously it was terrible what happened. And it kind of like tended to be like a life-changing point for Mufti Abu Leif. Um, but yeah, I wish him well. I wish that never happened because that kind of ruined stuff like how he was like interacting in social media, and it's just completely wrong. Like people should be allowed to express their opinions, even if they're opposing views or views that you don't agree with. And if you disagree with them, then you should challenge them, like debate them, but not like attack someone's personal property and also, attack his family or bring stress upon his family as well. So yeah, that was a very bad, horrendous thing that took place. But since then, he's moved on, so he seems to be doing better now. So
okay, thank you to defender. I have no idea about this. I don't know anything. So, but
yeah, so
thank you for
basically, I just, in a nutshell, in case if people don't know what I'm talking about, a couple of years ago, his house was basically evaded or attacked, simply because his views was that the Palestinians, they didn't have any means to defend themselves, and so his advice was that they should try to protect their lives by migrating away from that situation, because they don't have any means to defend themselves, and so people like on social media like took what he said and they blew it out of proportion, and as a result, you had people coming and attacking his house. But those people who attacked his house eventually got caught, and yes, but this was a few years ago, and since then, he's moved on from that experience.
Thanks, bro. Thanks. So Adolf Harnack, he was a great liberal scholar of the 19th century, one of the greatest scholars in history on the New Testament. And in page 18, just a few things he says. He said, the state, that criticism of the source of primitive Christianity it was. He says this, page 25. So quickly does criticism forget its function, with such bigoted obstinacy does it cling to its hypotheses. I'll read it again, page 25. So quickly does criticism forget its function, with such bigoted obstinacy does it cling to its hypotheses, page 25. And the context is that he thought that Luke, the Gospel of Luke and Acts, it's like second century. It was written in second century, but then he thought, I'll go back to the source and I'll study it afresh. So he began to say that actually Luke was in the 60s. The Gospel of Luke was in the 60s. So he completely reversed his view. But the reason why he did it is he looked at the critical scholarship and he was saying it's stubborn. It's stubborn and it's not willing to reflect on its hypotheses. So my question is to you is, in your studies, how do you differentiate as a Muslim from a scholar that might have a hypothesis that has already been debunked, but yet still holds on to that hypothesis? So, for example, like Bultmann, Rudolf Bultmann, he had the idea, he got the idea that the Gospels were developed by communities where they edited it. And he got those ideas from Scandinavian scholars who studied the Vikings. And so for 30 or 40 years, you couldn't get a PhD unless you agreed with Rudolf Bultmann that the Gospels were not written by eyewitnesses. They were not written by people who knew Jesus. It was generations after communities editing it. The thing is, we found manuscript. We found the Gospel of John, the text in Ryland's library and things like that. That made it seem that the Gospels are a lot earlier than second century, and it put a question mark on this theory of Rudolf Bultmann. Now, many scholars still hold on to that theory about community development, but then there are other scholars now that have abandoned it. So I just wonder what your thoughts are. Like, are you aware that some scholars come along and they do debunk other scholars, but yet the scholars that have been debunked, they still hold on to those theories in your studies?
I mean, I've not read the particular book that you've read, but from what I understand, by the way, when was that book written? Like from which years?
It was written round about just the beginning of near the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century.
Okay, so yeah, that's probably why I've probably not heard of it. But from the books that I've read, they've written like maybe about odd 20 to 30 years. And so the people tend to view Luke's gospel as being written by an anonymous author. And it seems to me that everyone agrees, including conservative scholars, that Luke is not written by an eyewitness, but Luke is claiming to have carefully investigated things. And that I think he says that he consulted eyewitnesses, even though he doesn't identify who these eyewitnesses were. So basically, he's saying that he's written an accurate account, so as to give certainty of the things that have been fulfilled. And he does so for either his dear friend Theophilus, or this is just a general statement to refer to anyone, who is someone beloved to God or is a lover of God, because the name Theophilus means, I think it means either someone who loves God or is someone who's beloved by God. But be that the case, from what the limited that I've read, from what I understand, they tend to date Luke's gospel post AD 70, so probably sometime in the 80s. However, I have noticed that there is like a minority view among some modern scholars, in which they have the tendency to date Luke's gospel in its present form to the 2nd century. And one of the reasons why they may say this is because of the prologue of Luke's gospel, when Luke says that there were many other accounts like his account that people had written. And so we know one of these would have been the Gospel of Mark, which Luke seems to draw upon, or is one of Luke's major sources. But besides Mark, we're not really aware of these other kind of written accounts, and so of course maybe from the 2nd century, because in the 2nd century you did have like many other accounts. So that's one view. And then the other reason why they tend to date Luke's gospel after the destruction of the temple in AD 70 is to do with when Luke discusses the destruction of the temple. He adds detail and information that wasn't mentioned by Mark or any of the other predecessors. So it's as if the destruction of the temple has already taken place and he's already aware, and hence why he has these extra details, which Mark did not include. So my understanding is that Luke was probably written about roughly in the 80s.
Right. So it's really good. I appreciate what you said. A couple of things that just bounce off that. I think what I was trying to, you take Raymond Brown, for example. If you look at even though we're looking at the Gospel of Luke, but if you look at like his Gospel of John, he's clearly using Boltman's theories there. He's very, very clearly the way he dates it, the way, and those theories. What I'm trying to allude to, Nazam, is that the dating of the Gospels was developed by certain theories of how you view history in ancient times. So one of the views was it must have been edited over generations, and the reason why they said that is because of the Scandinavian scholars that studied the Vikings. So Boltman gets his ideas not from looking at the historical 1st century Judaism, but actually taking his ideas from Viking studies. And so you can't implant Viking studies onto 1st century Judaism. You've got to look at 1st century Judaism in its context. So like Dunn tries to do that. There are scholars that try to do that. So all I'm saying is there is in the academic world these theories where you have scholars that have looked at the Gospels in the 1st century Jewish context, but there are still scholars today that have not really felt the full impact of that. They still hold on to some of these methodologies. And so Harnack's saying that he went back to the source of Gospel of Luke and looked at it more critically, and stubborn criticism that was coming in his time. And he was the leading scholar of the criticism that the Gospels, he said the Gospels were in the 2nd century. And he began to see that these theories about community development are just not actually the way 1st century Judaism worked, you see. So that's what I'm saying. The second thing is you're correct. There are a minority of scholars that say the Gospel of Luke is 2nd century. N.T. Wright, and I think Bart Ehrman. I know N.T. Wright says it's probably 80 AD. He thinks it might be earlier, but he's not willing to argue about it. He says if it's 80 AD, it's okay. Bart Ehrman, is it about 80 AD? If you
I
remember?
think so, but I'm
Yeah.
not sure. But probably, yeah.
Craig Keener, who's probably one of the greatest scholars today on the Book of Acts, has written and lectured on Luke, and he puts it. He thinks it's 60s, but he's willing to say 80 just for the argument's sake.
I think F.F. Bruce dates it in the 60s. It's maybe rather 65 or something like this, but yeah.
So here's a question then. Now we're getting into the meat of it, and you've shared some good points. So I'm going to ask these questions from a historical point of view, and then sometimes I'll ask you, give me a Muslim point of view. But from a historical point of view, looking at it from a historical point of view, is it relevant that that it's 60 AD or 80 AD or 2nd century? Should we just discuss that? Like, if the Gospel of Luke...
Yeah, sorry. Well, I was going to say,
Sorry.
it doesn't really make a significant difference to me, so...
Well, I think from a Christian point of view, I think it does from a Christian point of view, in that we look at Luke, so we can go to Luke, and I'll get my Craig Keener notes, but let me just get my Craig Keener notes. Yeah. So if we go to Luke chapter 1, so we get into the text. I'm using King James, bro, so I don't know what will you be using.
No, that's fine.
No?
King James is good.
And I'll read the prologue. For as much as many have taken in hand to set forth in order a declaration of the things which are most surely believed among us, even as they delivered them unto which from the beginning were eyewitnesses and ministers of the word, it seemed good to me also, having had perfect understanding of all things from the very first, to written unto thee in order, most excellent Theophilus, that the most mightiest that thou mightest know with certainty of the things wherein thou hast been instructed. So, for argument's sake, which we can go into deeper in a minute, but for argument's sake, if Luke has written it, and if Luke has got eyewitnesses, that's more substantial, would you say, just for argument's sake, than say an anonymous writer in the 2nd century. It's not Luke and it's not eyewitnesses. So those two do have an impact. If Luke actually wrote it and it's eyewitnesses, compared to someone who didn't write it and it was edited maybe 100 years or 80 years after, that does have an impact, doesn't it? Don't you think? If one of them is right, it does have implications.
It depends on the credibility of the eyewitnesses and the person who's investigating, because just because someone's an eyewitness, it doesn't automatically mean that they're trustworthy or reliable. And just because someone wasn't an eyewitness doesn't mean that they haven't researched the topic and haven't carefully investigated. So really, I guess you have to take things on a case-by-case basis. But ideally, you would like to know who the person was, who the author was, so you can have some kind of credibility as to whether you can trust the source or not. I guess it's a bit similar to, the sciences of Hadith studies, where you have the chain of narrators. So even though you know who the narrators were, you still the narrators are still scrutinized as to whether they are truthful or whether they had like good memories and etc.
I'll give you I'll give you a reason why I think it's not anonymous. Should I just do that and then you can critique that? Just
Sure.
and then I'd like to just go into a little detail about verse 1 to 4. I think we're gonna have to do about 6 streams on Luke or 3 streams on Luke, 2 streams on Luke.
Okay.
But one of the reasons why I think it's not anonymous is if you look at all the manuscripts that of Luke that we have,
Mhm.
and there's loads of them, the title sometimes change. It says according to Luke, of Luke. The first bits change, but it never changes on the issue of Luke. And that's significant because you have copies in all various places in France, in Turkey, or what was Byzantine or Syria at the time. You have all these copies in different places, and you never see a copy where it says when it's supposed to be Luke, it's Peter or Simon or Billy Bunty. It's always Luke. There's always consistency with the manuscript tradition. And if it was anonymous, what would happen is there wouldn't be that consistency. That's the first point. The second point is we're led to believe that the early church had an anonymous gospel for however long, 80 years or 100 years, and that they didn't know who wrote that gospel. It seems difficult to believe. And then thirdly, the Gnostic Gospels, they refer back to the Gospels and quote Luke, and they always have titles. They've always got names attached to them. So to say that the Gospel of Luke is anonymous, it's not in the manuscript tradition. And those are some of the arguments that I would put that it's not anonymous, bro. That's my honest thing. So I don't know if you want to unpack that or critique that.
So I mean, if it was written by Luke, I wouldn't really have an issue with it. But I mean, the reason why I don't think it was probably written by Luke is because Luke was someone who knew Paul, whereas
Yeah.
Paul, as presented in the book of Acts, is different from the Paul that we know from his own writings. So Paul, basically, Luke has a different time frame or chronology with regards to Paul's conversion, like as to what exactly or where exactly did Paul go after his conversion. And also, Luke presents Paul as like a law-abiding, someone who obeyed the Jewish law, and he irons out or smooths out the differences that existed amongst the apostles on one hand and Paul on the other side. And Luke as well shows Paul as someone who did not teach just in general, Luke's theology is different from that of Paul in that Luke did not believe in the atonement death of Jesus. So nowhere in Luke says that Jesus' body or blood was given for you as an atonement for sin, except in the final supper. In in Luke, I forgot the references, but basically those particular passages are not to be found in some of the most like ancient manuscripts of Luke's gospel, but are thought to be added later. But otherwise, Luke seems to present Jesus's death as a death of a religious martyr, but someone whom God vindicates by resurrecting and raising him from the dead. And so forgiveness comes about through repentance and obedience to God. And this is very different from what Paul believed in. So this is why I feel Luke probably did not write the Gospel of Luke, just based upon an internal critique and what we know of Luke from history.
Okay, so my caveat to that is I think what I've given, I know what you're saying about Paul's theology, and we'll get on to that
Mhm.
in a second, but I think that I've given some pretty formidable arguments when it comes to the manuscript tradition of Luke,
Sure.
when it comes to the Gnostic Gospels, why they're referring to Luke, and also that they have titles, and that it seems a bit strange that the community would have this anonymous gospel and not know
Mhm.
who wrote it. So the manuscript tradition, the Gnostic Gospels things. On the issue
So,
of
so, so,
get,
so I don't
all right,
mean to keep cutting you, but I was
yeah.
just gonna
So the,
say, this would just be for me myself a reason as to why I don't blindly follow scholars or worship
yeah,
scholars.
yeah,
So yes, scholars from the past, like from 2000 years ago, could have believed that the companion of Paul wrote Luke and Acts,
yeah.
but for me, they were sincere and they were honest people, but they were just sincerely wrong, in my opinion.
Okay, appreciate that, bro. But my when you're talking about Paul and Luke got things wrong, and that Luke didn't have a theology of the atonement, and you go to the breaking of the bread, the Lord's Supper, and there
Mhm.
is textual variance there. I'm aware of that. I actually listened to Bart Ehrman for this discussion that we're having. So last week I spent about 8 hours studying, this week a couple of hours, but I actually listened to a couple of lectures by Bart Ehrman. So what I did, I made notes, particular notes, specific notes on some of these issues, and then I went to the manuscript tradition. So on the issue of because I have to, because I know you do your study, you do your homework, so I have to make sure that I do my homework as well, and I'm not as learned as you, bro, but I have to do my studies.
No,
And
you
if
know
you
your
if you
stuff, and I know myself. So
if you actually, Nazam, if you actually, I would just encourage you to listen to Bart Ehrman, look at what he's saying about the manuscript tradition, and he says the earliest manuscript, they don't have certain textual variant about the Lord's Supper, but actually he's only referring to about two. There's actually just as older manuscripts that have the textual variants. So he's being economical with the truth. So I would just say I have the notes here. I can give you actual specifics with
Mhm.
the notes. I have let me just see. Uh, I don't want you to take my word for it.
No, no, it's fine. But if you like, for example, pick up the ESV, English Standard Version, in the footnote they make mention that some of like the most ancient or reliable manuscripts of Luke's Gospel do not have these portions of Luke. So I believe those manuscripts are like the Codex Sinaiticus and the Codex Sinaiticus, I believe. Um, and
so,
the other,
so
but despite what Barterman says, I mean, the other reason that scholars also give is also because Luke himself seems to deliberately go out of his way to remove any mention of Jesus dying for your sins, due to how he uh, edits Mark's gospel. Sorry.
I just get to the manuscript. So the manuscript
Okay, sure.
discussion is P75, Codex Vaticanus B, Codex Sinaiticus, Codex Alexandrinus, Codex Ephraim, Receptus, Codex Ludenus. So you can cut them in half. Half is on Bart Ehrman's side, half is on the other side. And
Mhm.
then you've got Latin manuscripts, like there's loads of them. And I think he's getting on that issue from Codex B's the 5th century, and a Syriac translation. So he's being a bit, I'm not saying you're right or wrong, but I'm saying with Bart Ehrman, he's being a bit economical with the truth. He's not actually, I've noticed with Bart Ehrman, he makes some very powerful polemic arguments, but when you go and research it, he leaves a lot of stuff out to the
I
general
see.
public. So I would say if you go and research the manuscripts on the breaking of the bread, the textual variant that he says is not there about as it's a reference for atonement. There's actually a strong manuscript evidence, and if the ESV has taken the side that one side, it's not necessarily based on a stronger manuscript tradition than the other side. That's my point there.
Very interesting.
But don't take my word for it. I actually just thought, right, what are the manuscripts? And I actually went to look at them myself to see what they say. And also, you've got church fathers that actually quoting the text in completely different from what Bart Ehrman's saying. So that's another form of the argument there. So what about the church fathers when they mention Luke as the author? I know you just said about scholars of the past. So you discount that witness, you discount them that when they say that Luke wrote, you say that you just ignore those scholars. I mean, Craig Keener mentions I'll just get my notes there, but I think Origin, um, help me out here, Nazam, I've got it somewhere. Oh, let me go to one of the things you can go to is Third Millennium Ministries, and they have a lot of information there. So the Third Millennium scholars, they're Reformed scholars, they mention the early church, the Moratorium fragment of 170, 180 AD. They mention Irenaeus, they mention Clement, and that's by Dr. Water. And so Tertullian, Clement of Alexandria, 150, 215, Irenaeus, the Anti-Marcion Prologue, 160, 180, and the Early Church Moratorium fragments, and Papyrus 75 by Dr. Peter Walker. So would you just say, how do you discount those sources? Do you say they're not relevant to the discussion about the authorship of Luke?
So I'm not really sure about the references that you made, but from what I understand, the first person to make mention of Luke writing the Gospel of Luke was, I think it was Irenaeus from the 2nd century.
Might be, or Marcion. No?
I don't know. Does Marcion name Luke as
Yeah,
being the author of
yeah,
that
yeah.
gospel?
I see what you mean. I know he quoted Luke, didn't he? He edited Luke.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Okay.
I mean, even when people say that this is the gospel according to Luke, what they mean by that is that this is the interpretation or understanding of the gospel of Jesus, according to Luke's understanding. And Luke is saying that he's writing a more accurate account than any other account that has been written before him or that he's aware of. So it's more than just it's more than just the author, the Gospel of Luke, but Luke is basically saying that his gospel is the definitive gospel, the be all and end all. Luke and Acts, and they should be read together. So he's not writing so that the gospel could be read alongside other gospels or in the New Testament along with other books, but he's writing as the final, the ultimate gospel in his understanding of who Jesus was and what Jesus' message was.
Right, right, right. So I would. Are you saying that would indicate a later date? Then is that what you're saying, Nazam? So because he's saying it's a definitive gospel, therefore it must be a later date. type thing.
Yes, because he says so in his prologue that he had predecessors, people before him.
I agree. I agree that he said predecessors. I think that I'm not saying you, bro, but I think scholars have got a problem there because they say that John is the last one,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
so if they're saying John is the last one, then it's like it doesn't make sense if Luke is saying that he's the last one. So I would say it's a theological issue. I think he's just saying everybody's done research, and I'm going to give a definitive account. But in John, if you read John, John's
Yeah.
more like a close-up camera, isn't it? It's not like the synoptics where the camera's out there at the back looking on. It's like Gospel of John, it's like the camera's coming close, like John 17. You get these intimate conversations, you know. But he mentions, Craig Keenan mentions in verse 1 that Luke says written sources. So number one, written sources. Then he says verse 2, oral sources, i.e. eyewitnesses. Verse 3, he says he knew the events. And verse 4 is saying these facts are known, so it would be very difficult for him to change the facts. So what I did is I looked at a variety of historians of that time. There was a guy called Emperor Tiberius, and I looked at Lucius Cassius, I looked at Josephus, I looked at 4 ancient historians and their historical method, and I compared it. So I could give you details if you wanted, but we're already nearly an hour into it, and we haven't even scratched the surface, bro.
No, exactly.
But I've got
but it's all good.
notes.
So I mean, there's no rush. So
I've got notes here.
yeah.
Like for example, there was about 4 or 5 biographies on Tiberius who lived at the time of Jesus, and Cassius 155 235. This historian used critical sources, comprehensive scope, analytical and moral judgments, narrative style, used autobiographical elements in his life of Tiberius. He selected detailed priority events, and he focused on political leadership. Josephus uses multiple sources, critical evaluation, integration of religious and moral perspective, historical and theological purpose, narrative style focused on character morality, use of archaeology and inscriptions. Those are some of his sources that he used. Suetonius, he used biographical approach. He uses various sources of official documents. He uses anecdotal and illustrative evidence. He uses moral and didactic method. He's concise and direct in his style. He lacks a systematic historical analysis. And then, yeah, so that's just 3, but I studied 4. But when I compare them to Luke, Luke seems to me, as I read his style, he comes out on top because there's very little. I know we in Acts he uses the word we, or people debate that, but it's very in the Gospel of Luke. It's very matter of fact. He just says, "This is it. This is it. This is it." Whereas Josephus and these other writers, they're always interspersing their opinions and their thoughts. And Luke seems to focus on, I don't know if you agree with me or not, but he does seem to focus on the outcast, the poor, the marginalized, the women, and he just does it in a very historical, matter of fact point of view. So I'm just saying, I've compared these different historians of the time, and I don't see like I can't honestly see how it would be a 2nd century writing when you compare the style. It looks as if he does know certain things. So, like in Luke's chapter 4, where they wanted to throw him off the mount, Jesus off the mount, for preaching. If you go to the archaeology there, if you go to that mount, it's there, and it's a steep. It's like a steep climb. Like, so you can see if he was there, Jesus, he could have easily been pushed off. So Luke the writer must have gone to that area to have looked at the geography to see what was going on when he was writing it. And that would indicate to me that Luke would have, we know that in Acts 16, he spent a lot of time at Antioch, and he must have met some of people who knew Jesus. And it's not unbelievable to think that he traveled to Jerusalem and Galilee and checked out the area in order to write his biography. That's my opinion. So to cut a long story short, I've looked at historians of that time. Luke's style seems to be even more focused on writing history. When you compare, there's very little antidote, very little of his opinion. And secondly, geographically, when I look at some geographical points, someone who was there could have only written, say, Luke chapter 4. Those are my points, bro. Sorry for going on, mate.
No, it's cool. Sorry.
But we haven't even got past verse 1 to 4, bro.
I know.
So I'll let you give the final thoughts, and then I'll let people, if people want to come on, could they come on and just ask you a question? If they get a bit
sure.
rowdy, I'll kick them off. So, yeah.
No, it's cool. No worries.
So if anybody wants to come on and ask Nazam a question, it's asking him. I'm not going to say anything. It's up to you, bro, what you want to say. Yeah, you're a guest, and I treat you with
it's cool.
respect.
Even if people would want to ask you, that's fine as well.
So if anybody, Gareth was here. You know Gareth. You've met Gareth. You know Gareth.
Yeah, a speaker's
you met him
corner.
at
Yeah.
yeah. He always mentions you. You always mention him. So
Oh,
Gareth,
cool.
if you want to come on, I'll put the link out again. If anybody wants to come on and ask a question, or ask a question in the audience. But we've only got to verse 1 and 4. We haven't even got into the book. So, but I'll let you. Do you want to ask me any question, or do you want to just say what your thoughts from maybe your reading of Luke, or what you think so far, what we talked about? Like, is there anything I've said that has interested you, made you think? Anything that that we've discussed today, that we've gathered information from? What I've gained from you is your thoughts about Paul and Luke, and I'm aware of some of those things, but next time or whenever we talk, I need to go and look into more depth about that. So that's something that you've challenged me on. So I'll do that. I have loads of books on Paul and the Book of Acts, so I'll go and study that. So that's something I've taken out of what you've shared today, and a couple of other things as well. So
yeah, I mean, I've begun reading the Gospel of Luke, and I was surprised as to there's many things found in Luke's Gospel that are similar to the Quran as well. And maybe it'd be nice for one of these times me to maybe just show similarities, because I know Muslims and Christians are always debating one another with discussing disagreements. I thought it may be nice for one of these times to also look at points that we do share or have similarities on as well.
okay, bro. So I booked my ticket, so I'll be at Speaker's Corner next week.
Yeah.
On Sunday. So I don't know if you'd like to take it up, just maybe have half an hour, talk about the Apostle Paul in the Book of Acts and how it might be different from his letters, and just discuss that. I don't know what you think, if you'd be interested in that.
Yeah, sure. This Sunday I'm not 100% sure because it's a bank holiday. So
All right.
I'm not sure if I'll be there this Sunday, but I probably will be. But
If you're
yeah,
not there, I'll
otherwise,
get you the next Sunday then, or
oh,
maybe
no problem. Yeah.
a Monday. So if you could refresh yourself on Paul and Acts, and I'll start to do that, and we can maybe have a discussion. I'll let you, if it's all right, if next time I meet you, I'll let you just, is it okay? You lead the discussion, like take it where you want to go. Is that okay?
Yeah, I mean that's fine. But I prefer you to lead the discussion
Are you sure?
because
Because I
I'm
want to.
not very good at leading
Well,
discussions
like,
myself. And
would you say that I've been fair today? That I've treated you with respect? 'Cause I want
oh
you to
yeah,
feel comfortable,
definitely. No,
respected, not trying to bamboozle you.
oh no, no,
You
no.
know,
If anything, I feel like I may have bamboozled you. So if I have, apologize. It wasn't my intention. But no, I actually prefer if you led the discussion because I'm not very good at this type of stuff.
okay.
Um,
So what
but
I'm gonna do? Sorry, go on, bro. Yeah.
no, what I'm just
All
gonna
right.
say, unless if you want if you don't want the burden to like lead the discussion, and I can do that for you. Otherwise, I'm very happy and fine for you to lead the
I'm
discussion.
happy. I'm happy to lead it, but I just want you to know that I want you to feel respected. I don't want you to feel
Oh no,
like
100%.
I'm,
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
manipulating you or trying to corner you or anything.
Oh no.
You know. Um. So yeah, I'll lead. So next time I see you, whenever that is, we can arrange it for definite. Um. Or
Sure.
if I catch you
Oh,
somewhere like a speaker's corner or on a Monday evening sometime, we could go into Paul, the Book of Acts, and the Paul's letters about is there a contradiction and things like that.
mhm.
Or what question would you want? Should we discuss? Like, have you got
Mm,
like a question that we could like go and research or think about the Apostle
mm,
Paul and Acts?
I
Should we
see.
narrow it down specifically? Because, like I said, the Gospel of Luke. I should have said we will discuss Luke chapter 1 verse 1 to 4. Because
Okay.
I've got like stacks of notes here on the whole Gospel of Luke, and we've just
Yeah.
done verse 1 to 4. So
Mhm.
should we be specific about a particular thing or just general? Or you're more experienced in discussing.
No, it's entirely up to you. Whatever you feel comfortable. I don't mind at all. Um,
Okay, what about it's quite nuanced though
mhm,
if we discuss the theology of Luke as opposed to the theology of Paul, that's that's going to get like nuanced. We're going to have to go into the textual variant specifically of the Lord's Supper, things like that. I think. What about um, what about if we look at the Book of Acts and just discuss Luke's presentation of the Apostle Paul, and is that a faithful historical account of Paul's preaching? What do you think about that?
yeah. Yeah, we
Uh,
can discuss that. That's something I'm interested in.
yeah, so we could read like if you study, you've already studied, but if we study the end of the end of the Gospel of half of the
Mhm.
Book of Acts, the theology of Paul in the Book of Acts, and then ask the question: is Luke historically reliable in terms of presenting Paul's theology? So then that means we have to look at Paul's letters, compare his preaching, and see if there's contradictions and whatever, or is it a consistent presentation of the Apostle Paul?
Okay.
Is that fair?
Yeah, that sounds
All
good.
right. Well, you're giving me a lot of work to do now. That sounds good, bro.
No problem.
So I'll let you give the last word, and then I'm going to close it. I'm not going to stay. No, nobody's come. I think Gareth came,
Okay.
then he's gone. Some lady here, Aisha, love watching people passionate about the religion. I hope you've seen that how respectful we are. This is what I want to do, Nazam at Speaker's Corner. This kind of discussion.
Yeah, me too.
You know, we're not trying to beat each other or trying to put each other down. I think if we can do this, it will help Speaker's Corner, brother. You know,
God willing.
and Muslim relationships as well with Christians and Christians with Muslims. If we have these kind of discussions, like you've not tried to buttonhole me. You've given your point of view. You've been strong in your opinions, but you've not tried to humiliate me. And I hope I've not tried to humiliate you. I hope we've
Oh
had a
no.
very amicable, very respectful discussion. So your fan here, Gaz, is coming on. I think he'd like to ask you a question.
Oh, really? Cool.
All right,
Hey,
Gaz.
guys.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you want to? I'll let you ask one question to Naz. Is that okay?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how long you're going to be on for, chatting. Have you pretty much finished?
Yeah, we're about to close, but we'll let you hold the floor for a minute or two. You can ask Naz a few questions if you want. Because, when I'm at Speaker's Corner, Naz always asks about you and Mike.
hmm
Yeah, so
All right, that's
do
cool.
you want to ask him a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, when you read the Gospel of Luke, is there anything that you've been looking for in the Gospel that when you speak to a lot of Christians, and do you ask them a certain question about the Gospel itself that you kind of struggle with? Is there something that you can't find in there that you're looking to have your question answered? Is there anything in there that you can't find, in particular, like a scribe or an actual author?
Right.
So in Luke's Gospel, when I was reading Luke's Gospel, I tend to read Luke's Gospel on its own terms. So and also to look for like similarities as well between Islam and Christianity. But I accept that there's also like major differences between Luke and the Quran. So for example, in my understanding, the Quran doesn't teach the death and resurrection of Jesus as Christian or as Luke presents it as. But besides that, I think there's actually many similarities. Like Luke, in the beginning, contains this kind of praise of Mary, and you do not find this praise of Mary anywhere else in the New Testament, as far as I'm aware. And similarly, the Quran also praises Mary as well, as a woman whom God has chosen and has purified and has chosen above the women of the worlds. Um, so, and also the parables as well, like Luke's teaching that forgiveness comes about through repentance, is also shared in the Quran as well, that God is most merciful and kind, and do not despair of God's mercy, but verily God forgives all sins. So in terms of having a question of Luke, I guess is there
Yeah.
anything in Luke that you believe that shows that Jesus is God or teaches the divinity of Christ?
Well, when it comes to the divinity of Christ, it's because he is one with the Father. You see, so they have to obviously like share the Logos. Well, Jesus is the Logos. That also. And you did mention about Mary. Well, Jesus was born to the Virgin Mary, which also you believe in as well as a Muslim, which Christians and Muslims do have to agree with. And is divinity that you struggle with, or is it just other things in general, or is it mainly his divinity that where Jesus is God in the flesh? Is that one of the main struggles you have?
Well, I actually don't have that struggle when reading Luke's gospel, that Luke, to me, doesn't present Jesus as God in the flesh. So even when the word logos appears in Luke's gospel, it's not in reference to Jesus himself, but the word logos is used in reference to the charisma, the preaching of Christians. So in Luke chapter 1, where he uses the word logos to refer to the charisma or the message as being the word. And in my understanding also in Luke, there's no sense of Jesus pre-existing, but Jesus comes into existence as a result of being conceived through the power of the Holy Spirit, meaning God, Jesus was created by God's power, which is sometimes referred to as the Holy Spirit in the Bible. So I don't really have that issue in Luke's gospel, and pretty much in none of the 4 gospels. I don't really have. I don't see Jesus being presented as God.
Well, I mean, I think Seymour struggled there with his divinity more than the theology and the actual gospel itself. I think that's what I found when I speak to a lot of people, especially like Muslims who I know who have known for a long, long time, and some I do, talk to them. I mean, last night I was actually having a discussion with a Muslim who was actually who actually got a degree in philosophy and religion, and it was a sister. It was really good. Yeah, it was really, really good. She's very knowledgeable, and I've spoken to other people, so I do have good conversations. I think these kind of dialogues are actually much better than all the screaming and arguing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I'm not into that. Yeah, sorry,
I have a paper here on the Christology of Luke's Gospel, which we could have got into. Because you're a guest, I don't want to come back at you on those things because we
no, it's fine.
Christians have mentioned. I could come back at you, and I would just say that from a Christian point of view, and Gareth, thanks. We're going to bring on another guest in a second, Vekel. But from a Christian point of view, our paradigm with the Bible being God's word, that's what we believe. We take all scripture. So we believe there are verses that show Jesus is a man, but also Jesus is God. And in the Gospel of Luke, one of the themes in the Gospel of Luke, I think it's mentioned 23 times, that Jesus is the Savior. And if you go back in the Old Testament, Yahweh is the Savior, and yet it keeps saying that Jesus is the Savior. So that's one area. But I don't want to go into it too much, but I'm just going to bring on Gareth. Thank you very much. I'm going to bring on
before you close me off.
Yeah.
Can we? If you got time, will I be able to finish and wrap up what I said, and then we can reschedule like another discussion?
Well,
I can follow up. I can follow up, so I can finish with anything I can discuss anything like the divinity and with Nazam another time as well. So I don't want to take up your time. We can wrap it up as well.
It's fine. Anytime, Gareth.
I'm sure. One day, what we're going to do next one is we're going to do Paul and Acts, but we can do a discussion particularly on the divinity of Christ. So you're welcome to come in on that at some time. He's welcome to come in, Nazam, is he not?
Yeah, Jason, feel free to share my contacts with Gareth. So if you want to carry on, we can continue after the stream
if you want to carry on with Nazam,
that's better.
you can.
So yeah.
Or just jump on the show when we do
whenever it's convenient. So
divinity, yeah. So guys, I'm going to bring on Vekel now. Is that okay, bro?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to bring on Vekel.
Thank you.
Hey, Vekel, how you doing, brother?
Brother Jason, what's going on?
Yeah, long time no see, bro. Nice to see you. Nice. Are you okay?
Yeah, doing great.
Do you want to ask Nazam any question or thought? Before you do, the sister Aisha, the Muslim lady, dear Muslim lady, she says, is Luke, let Nazam answer this, is Luke more likely a Gentile than a Jew? Is that correct understanding from my reading?
As far as I know, that's the traditional view, and I think everyone agrees, regardless skeptic or believer, that the Gospel of Luke was written by a non-Jewish person.
Gentile.
So yeah.
So Aisha is a Gentile. That's what the traditional view is.
Yeah.
All right. Over to you, Vekel, brother.
Well, I got to be
Feel
honest.
free.
I didn't really have anything. I just popped in because I saw that you had the link available to everyone. So I'm not even really sure what the discussion is, except for
Well,
what you have in the title, Gospel of Luke dialogues.
it was about the Gospel of Luke, but Gareth asked about a question, and it got talking about the divinity of Christ, and
Oh,
Nazam was saying he's not worried about the Gospel of Luke. It doesn't teach the divinity of Christ. Do you want to give some thought on that about the divinity of Christ, and see what Nazam responds to you about that, whether it's in the Gospel of Luke or the Gospels?
yeah. I think out of all four Gospels, probably in Jason, you probably know this better than I do. The Gospel of John is probably the first Gospel that you would go to get the more detailed idea about his nature, about the nature of Christ. Definitely gives more focus on his divinity, I think, than the other three Gospels do. The Gospel of Matthew seems to give more attention to his monarchical lineage. You know, you go through the genealogy, it talks about the lineage that he has from the people who are in, you know, patriarchal power and stuff like that, such as David and Solomon. But in Luke, the genealogy I see there is more of his human side, I guess. So it's more of his, I guess it expresses more of his humanity uh, in Luke. So, but it certainly doesn't take away from his divinity as expressed throughout the other Gospels and stuff, particularly in John. So, yeah, um, that's the way I've
Got
always
my
looked at Luke. Yeah.
I'm just getting my. I've got so many notes here. Let's see. You know, when I have so many notes, I get them mixed up. But this scholar is a Catholic scholar. I'd encourage you. You might have read him, Nazam. It's called "The Case for Jesus" by Brant Pittier. I don't know if you've read him, but that's where I got the arguments for the manuscript tradition for Luke in all the Gospel. That's where I got the
Mhm.
argument from. But he talks about when the Lord walks on water, he uses the word, it is I, ego, you know, the I am sayings of John. In the synoptic tradition, there's also, when he's walking on water, he says, I am, I am, using the ego, I am statement.
Interesting.
And so he makes the argument that that is a claim to divinity. And the other one is when he makes the point that when people point out that, you know, when the rich unruly came to Jesus and said, uh, was it good, what's the exact word? Good rabbi or good,
So teacher,
yeah, he says good rabbi or good, and Jesus says, none is good but God. So a lot of
mhm.
people say, well, that's a reference that he's saying he's not God. But what the case for Jesus, Brant Peter says, is that when you actually look at it, he's actually claiming he's God, because he then goes to the guy and says, have you obeyed the commandments? And he says, I've obeyed them all. He says, one thing you lack, go and sell everything. And then he says, follow me. And so the Catholic scholar here, I'm not saying I'm a Catholic, but he was saying that
Mhm.
he's actually adding an extra commandment. He's actually claiming divinity, because he's saying exclusive loyalty to me, which for Jews it's Yahweh. So I
Oh,
would
that's
just
interesting.
encourage you
Yeah.
to go and read The Case for Jesus by Brant Petir, and it's on. It's like about 4 chapters down, 5 chapters. He talks about Jesus and the deity of Christ, and he brings this. He discusses the synoptic tradition. Uh, so, do you want to say anything else,
So
Veklo?
No. I'll wait for the next person. Go ahead. Somebody
All
want to say
right. So,
something?
well, I'm going to close. We've done over an hour, and we're going
Oh,
to do another show in the next week, and then we'll do some more. So, unless anybody wants to just ask one more question to Nazam, we're gonna close.
I'll put a comment in the back chat. You can look at that, Jason.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to clear up about the part where Nazam mentioned, the virgin birth,
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, ask him about the question about the virgin birth and
Real-
Elizabeth praising Mary. Ask him about that if you want to. Yeah, if you
yeah,
do that, and then we'll close then.
I just
yeah,
wanted to
well,
ask:
we can arrange a follow up.
is
Sorry,
Nizam a Muslim?
yeah,
Yes.
Nazam's a Muslim.
Okay.
He's a well-known at Speaker's Corner. He's debated Jay Dyer and a few others, and
I got you.
he's a very scholarly Muslim guy and a very nice guy. So that's why he's here
Thank you.
today.
You too.
So we're not come to pulverize him. We've just come to have a friendly time.
Nice. Or you can if you want to. It's fine.
Right.
Yeah, that's why I call him the nicest Muslim in the park.
Thank you.
So do you want to ask him about what you said in the private chat about Elizabeth and Mary?
Yeah, because you mentioned the virgin birth. Am I correct, Naz?
That's right. Yeah.
So when it comes to the virgin birth, I mean, I know we sort of like got into the part about the divinity as well, because where Elizabeth, she praises Mary, and before she gives birth, and then she has the Magnificat, where Mary said, the soul magnifies the Lord, and my spirit is rejoicing in God, my Saviour. So she carries, the spirit of Christ in her womb, before she gives birth to the Messiah. Jesus Christ, and so that's where the Spirit, and he's also the Spirit of God. So that's why he has the divinity, and that's one of the reasons why I think we call him the Son of God as well. Not because he is the Father, which is a 3rd century heresy. So when I have a conversation with other people who struggle with the virgin birth or the divinity in general, people assume all the Christians believe in Jesus being the Father. Have you spoken to like these oneness people where they believe Jesus is the Father, and we also believe like he's also the mediator between God and man. So his divine side and his human side bridges the gap between the humans and the Father. So the Spirit has to. So the Spirit has to, help. People understand, like God and give us wisdom, and also the same Spirit, work through the prophets. So if anybody like doesn't have that or this Holy Spirit, then all the prophets in general, I think, would be false. They would be doing things from their own opinions or their own, false teachings.
Yeah, can I come in here because you're making some good points.
Yeah, go on, Joe.
Couple of things that guys mentioned, I just want to bring in is two things. One is like to ask Nazim, what's your conception of the virgin birth in Islam? How do you like how do you see like what is he a physical prophet? And do you understand what Gareth was saying about how we understand the virgin birth? That it was more than just the virgin birth is that he it's the part of the divine entering into Mary and into the womb as a baby. And then the second question is the story of Mary praising the Lord, the story of Zechariah being told by Gabriel that he's going to have a baby and he can't believe it. He's made to be quiet. And then Elizabeth does have a baby. And then she praises the Lord and then she meets Mary. Do you believe that's historical? Do you believe the story, the praise, that song that Mary sings and also Elizabeth sings a song? And Zechariah the angel coming in. Do you think all that was historical? So two questions. One is, what's the Islamic view compared to the Christian view about the virgin birth? And second question, what's your view? Are those stories in the Gospel of Luke historical, where Mary praises the Lord and where Elizabeth praises the Lord? There's these big songs that are really amazing. Are they historical or are they just made up?
So I mean, in terms of the question, I'll try to answer them very quickly as I can. But in terms of the Muslim belief in the birth of Jesus, so Muslims believe that Jesus was created by God's commandment B, and it's similar to like when you read in the book of Genesis, when Isaac's mother Sarah, when she's told that she will be a mother and that she will conceive, and she wants to know how this will be. The answer that is given to her is that she's told that this is the decree of God, or this is by God's commandment. And it's the same idea that when Mary also asked, how shall I have a son when no man has touched me? The answer that is given to her is that whenever, when your Lord has decreed an affair, he merely says to it, be, and it becomes into existence. But this affair that God has decreed is similar to Isaac's birth, and also to John's birth, because those are also miracle births as well. And so Muslims believe that Jesus was created by God's commandment be, and this expression be is basically symbolic to symbolize God's willing Jesus to come into existence. And in the Quran, Jesus is referred to as one of his most common popular title in the Quran is he's referred to as the Son of Mary. And it's interesting that you also find that Jesus is also called the Son of Mary in Mark's Gospel. And it's said that the reason why he's referred to as the Son of Mary, because back then, when the father wasn't known, or when there was no father, then the child would be usually then referred to by their mother's name. Whereas if there was a father on the scene, then they will be referred to by their father's name. So it's interesting that Mark's Gospel, which is commonly believed to be written in the 60s, and is said to be like the earliest written gospel. In Mark chapter 6, Jesus is referred to as the Son of Mary without any mention of any father, or there's no mention of Joseph in Mark's Gospel. But in terms of your question about when Mary is praised in the Luke's Gospel, general principle is that as long as nothing contradicts the Quran, then there's no problem in accepting or believing in something, because most things in life we believe in and act upon based upon probabilistic knowledge. So for example, like the weather forecast, for example, we don't have like 100% certainty. For example, like let's say it's going to rain, but we still act upon that knowledge because it's reasonable knowledge to believe in. So likewise, many reports from the past is based upon probabilistic knowledge. And in our every day-to-day life, we do act upon like probabilistic knowledge or reasonable knowledge. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to practice and live. And likewise, we can accept reports from the past as Muslims, especially if they don't contradict the Quran or any authentic saying of the Prophet Muhammad.
So, just coming back to that, then, see, this is one of the problems I have, Nazam, with Islam is and a Muslim apologist, is that when they're looking at the Bible, they're obviously going to look at it from Muslim eyes. So when they get scholars, whether it be conservative Christian scholars or liberal Christian scholars, they're always going to go to whatever buttresses or lifts Islam when it comes to reading the Bible. So you're always going to find something in a conservative Christian scholar or a liberal scholar that accords with the Quran as interpretation of, say, the Gospel of Luke, where I think that's a bit problematic. Like, how do you come to history with, do we come to history objectively, or do we come with our bias and we acknowledge our bias?
I think everyone has biases,
Yeah.
whether you're a believer or an unbeliever. But my approach is that I believe also in the supernatural. So I
Yeah,
also believe that God spoke. He sent many prophets and messengers prior to the Prophet Muhammad. And also I believe in other sacred texts that was revealed to other prophets prior to the Prophet Muhammad. And I also believe in miracles as well. Um, so I don't just automatically reject something just because it's a supernatural belief. Um, so I mean, I start out with the belief in the Quran as God's word, and
mm,
then
mm.
as long as the belief doesn't contradict the Quran, then I don't really have an issue with, and that's why when it comes to approaching the Bible, I tend to prefer the approach where you harmonize the Bible with the Quran, rather than look for contradictions or differences. So basically, I'm a student of history, and I'm also a student of religion. So I don't come from a secular approach, but come from a believer approach as well.
I appreciate what you're saying, but like when we're looking at, say, first century Judaism, so we're looking at first century Judaism, the time of Jesus, and like Gareth was saying about Elizabeth and Mary. So they're in the Gospels, and we would say in the first century Judaism. So as a historian, you have to, you might have your bias, but you've got to try and, as you know, enter into that time frame and get a feel for that time frame and that culture, and then to look at the text within that context. And for us as Christians, obviously, our paradigm, our context is first century Judaism because our text is the Old Testament as well as the New Testament, so which would be part of the first century culture. Um, so, but what I would say is that you have the first century Judaism, but then you have, even though you believe it's a revelation, it's still in the is it 630 AD,
Oh,
around
seventh
about that.
century. Yeah.
Yeah, 7th century. And it's from that perspective. So that is having a big impact on how you understand, say, the Gospel of Luke. Whereas for us, um, the way we would understand the Gospel of Luke, first of all, would be within the text itself, which is the
Mhm.
New Testament and the Old Testament as our starting point. So that would be our paradigm, and then
Mhm.
from there we breach out to evidences outside there, whether it be text, Josephus, or whether it be ancient text. So Gareth, do you want to, before you say something, Gareth, I'll just read this question out, and I'll let you ask a question again, Gareth, and then I'll give Nazim the last word, and then we're going to close. But here's the question from Truth Defender. Do you understand that question, Nazam? Because it's quite a
Yeah.
deep question.
Mhm.
Do you want to answer it? Because Truth Defender, I wish you was here to speak yourself, bro, with
Yeah, if you wanted
Nazam.
to
But
bring
go
him
on.
up, if you wanted to bring him up, I didn't mind, you know.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
it's
me
okay.
too.
The link's there if Truth Defender wants to come on. It would be
Yeah,
better
I
if he
can
wants to
wait.
come on.
It's no problem. I can wait if he wants to say something. I don't want to like, hog the stream, you know.
It's okay. So the link's there, Truth Defender, if you want to come on. So how can Alice say to something be before it is in order to bring it into existence? This is where your mind's bigger than mine, bro. So I don't know what Truth Defender's referring to, or do you know what he's trying to get at there, Nazar?
So in the Quran, in Surah 3,
Right,
Mary is told that she will be the mother of Jesus. And
right.
so she says, how shall that be when she knows no mortal? Um, and so the angel says to her that it is an affair or decree, and that when your Lord decides on an affair, he merely says to it, be, and it becomes. So the way Muslims have understood this verse is that it's not God physically or literally saying with his lips, not that God has body parts or organs as like the orthodox or mainstream view, but it's just like a figure of speech or symbolic to make us to try to understand that this was done by God's will, that God willed Jesus into existence. And so this is just another way to say that God willed Jesus into coming into existence. And so when the moment in time was right, that is when Jesus became alive, and God willed Jesus without any human father or male intervention, that Jesus was born without a father.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. And True Defender, thank you for that very profound question. And also Nazam for giving the Islamic perspective. It's a shame that
Well,
Truth
thank you.
Defender's not here. He could give you a response on that. But Gareth, I'll let you ask one final question, and then I'm going to let Nazam close then, and then we'll call
Sure,
it a
yeah.
day.
Yeah, we can do that. I mean, are you still planning on continuing the stream, like with more like follow-up of chapters, and also after we've done the Gospel of Luke, if you want, we can do a stream with like Truth Defender and Beckel, and we can all discuss like Sarah Miriam and also Mary in the Gospels. Do you want to do that, or the Divinity? Which is that we can plan something ahead?
I don't know unless Nazam is going to go on another Muslim channel and then continue the stream. That's up to Nazam. But for me, I've done all.
No, I'm saying
I've
on
got
this
it
one,
down.
we can do it on this platform, yeah. I mean, like, we can, after you've done the Gospel of the Week, maybe we can plan something ahead, like, later on,
Yeah,
we don't know yet when.
Yeah, we're planning the poll thing, but we can plan in the future other streams and stuff. If Nazam wants to help with that, Nazam, you're helping me create an environment of discussion, and that's what I'm trying to do,
Mhm.
brother.
Yeah.
So you coming on here. I'm hoping to start a podcast called Grace and Glory and link it with Speaker's Corner. Go down to Speaker's Corner, and the idea, one of the things I want to try and do in the future is to have. Obviously, there'll be robust stuff, but I want to try and get a lot of this stuff because I think that the temperature at Speaker's Corner and around the UK is at boiling point, and I think it has to come down a bit. And I think this is a nice way of it coming down, is just treating each other with respect and dialoguing like this.
Yeah, I totally agree, 100%.
So yeah, so we'll be doing other streams if Nazam helps us with that.
Yeah, he's still
And
doing the Gospel, though. He's still finishing the chapters in the
yeah,
Gospel of the Week, or are we planning on doing
well,
more,
well,
or
we,
then we can
yeah,
arrange something?
well, we can continue with Luke as well if Nazam wants to in the future. Yeah, we could do a few
Oh,
more streams on that. Maybe the divinity of Christ or the atonement in the Gospel of Luke in the future, something like that.
Yeah, I
All
mean,
right.
we can get like Beckel and Truth Depender on as well.
It'd be nice to see Truth Defender. Uh, and Veckel, it was
yeah.
nice to see you too, brother. So, do you want to ask Nazam a question, or should we leave it now and just let Nazam say something and call it a day?
Yeah, I'll just ask a quick question, then we can wrap up, yeah, if that's all
All
right.
right.
Yeah.
No
All right.
Yeah, I
problem.
Give him a
mean,
quick question then.
okay, yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, once we've done, the Gospel of Luke, would you like to discuss like the divinity or the Trinity or something like that?
So you know what? I'd be happy to discuss anything that you guys like. My only criteria is as long as we're all cordial and pleasant to one another, then we
Yeah.
can discuss anything you guys like.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually quite a good setting. I mean, I like how Jason's and hosted this, and I think it's very good. Where we can dialogue these kind of topics, textual criticism, and unpack scholarship. No problem. I mean, because I actually think it's a great way, because when I've been on the internet, I've been seeing tons of streams on other platforms where everyone's just like arguing, swearing, debating, and and no one can hear anybody.
No, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's pushing the buttons to try and kick people off. I mean, this is a great setting.
Yeah. Well, the good thing about Nazam, he said things and I've heard it. So there's some things I'll chew over, like what he said about Paul. So I have listened to what you've been saying. So there's more to learn. I think the main thing is the environment, setting up an environment where people can dialogue and discuss. And I don't want it to get, we're just trying to corner each other. I mean, we always have our position and our polemics, but I hope today we've got past just polemics. We have done a little bit of polemics, but we have discussed in a scholarly way these topics and given information for people to go away and research it themselves.
You're right, though, Jason. He didn't even touch a lot of it. He's just he only barely scratched it. I think that's correct. I mean, maybe like if Aisha comes back as well, we can probably ask her if she wants to pop up and Beckle and Truth Vending. We can get more people on.
Yeah. So it will be sometimes on a new channel that I'm starting called Grace and Glory. So there's no
Oh,
subscribers.
so that's what it's called. That's what GG means.
But I'll advertise it a week before, and hopefully it'll get going. And if you want to copy this and use it, Nazam, you have copyright. You can use it if you want to use it. Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Or if you want to cut it up into bits, you can do that. It's up to you, mate.
Thank you.
All right, mate. Gareth, I'm going to go. Nazam, I'm going to go. I'm going to make a cup of tea.
Appreciate it.
We've had Nazam. Thank you, but my friend, next time I see you, I'll buy you a coffee for coming on. That'll be
No problem. Appreciate it, but you don't have to.
Take care. I'm not going to stay on because I don't think it's right me staying on and saying anything. I want to go now so that people are left with the discussion, because I don't think it's right me staying on and then talking. It takes away from what you said. People can now.
I was just going to say, feel free to share my contact details with Gareth or anyone else who asks you if they've got any further questions or elaborations that they want to make. So yeah.
Okay, will do, mate. Will do. So I'm going to close the stream, guys. All
Thank you.
Take care now.
Thanks a lot.
All the best.
God bless you all. Have a good week.
You too.
I'll see you Wednesday, guys. Bye. See you guys. Bye. Okay, that was a great stream. Truth Defender, thank you for coming on. Feckle, thank you for coming on. And Aisha, thank you for coming on. Everybody, Gareth, thank you for coming on. And a big thank you to Nazam. He did great tonight. He really shared the Islamic position, and I hope that I gave some good points from a Christian perspective. We went into the scholarship. I would just recommend from a Christian point of view, you can read F.F. Bruce on the Gospel of Luke, J.C. Ryle on the Gospel of Luke, and probably one of the greatest scholars in Lucan studies at the moment is a guy called Craig Keener. And under the video is a reference to various talks and sermons on the Gospel of Luke. If you're a Muslim, I would encourage you to read the Gospel of Luke in Arabic. And when I'm at Speaker's Corner, I will have Arabic Gospels if you want a Gospel. Thank you to the Muslim community who might listen to this. Thank you for being respectful. Thank you for all the Christians who might listen to this. God bless you. Love to you all. Watch out for Speaker's Corner next week. I'll be down there. So God bless you. Love to everybody and take care. Bye.